Hello chums, and welcome to Taming a Monster, the series where I take some of Gran Turismo 7's most ridiculous cars to see if I can tweak them so that a talentless pleb like me can handle them without being killed to death. Like any common ruffian, I'm using a bog standard PlayStation 5 controller, and I have all driver assists turned off, except for ABS. Let's see what car is trying to murder me today. Today will more than likely be a complete disaster. Here is an original Abarth tuned Fiat 500, a car that makes the original Beetle look safe by comparison. To make this car even less safe, we have a Honda K20 turbo engine, bumped up to over 500 horsepower in something that doesn't weigh much more than a bathtub, and probably has less space inside than one too. As usual, the tiny little menace has all of the upgrades applied, including the wide body and body rigidity increase, and none of the settings have yet been adjusted, except for the downforce, which is maxed, the transmission, which has already been tweaked for this car, and I had to add a small amount of ballast weight to the front axle so that I could get rid of the stupid warning triangle glitch. The little bastard has aftermarket wheels in the standard size. Increasing the wheel size can make the car feel more agile, something we certainly don't want any more of here. It has a front splitter for front downforce and a very necessary rear wing to add some rear downforce. If you're interested in learning more about aero, downforce, or any other aspect of tuning your car, I have a series called Tuning for Beginners which covers everything from suspension to differential to the transmission. The chosen track today was the Mount Panorama circuit, and things got off to a wonderful start. Oh, bloody hell. Ow. 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 I attempted to make it at least a little bit further, barely nursing the little disaster around turn 1. Trying to go fast over the crest was a mistake, however. Oh dear. Ow. 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 Right, we'll bugger that then. Once I recovered from being dead, I increased the rear ride height for my OCD. I then increased the anti-roll bars and natural frequency to reduce body roll in the hopes of making it past turn 1. Whoa, dear God. This time, I did manage turn 1 without being murdered. I gently nursed the car all the way to turn 3 before the calamities began to happen. No, oh for Christ. Oh, good Lord. Jesus, oh bloody hell. What is happening? Ow! As you can see, it was slightly difficult to drive. No! Ow! Ow! What on earth? There was never going to be any chance of taming this car with the usual suspension and differential tweaks, so I decided to get the extreme measures out of the way next. I fitted racing hard tyres to the front axle to slow down the front end turn-in. I massively reduced front downforce for the same reason. I also added more weight to the front axle until I achieved a 50-50 weight distribution. This time, the car launched without pulling a wheelie. Jesus Christ, I'm still alive! Better still, it was much more reasonable to drive around turn 1. The downside now is that the weaker front tyres and front ballast will reveal how truly awful this car's brakes are, especially with over 500 horsepower. If you're wondering why I knew which tyres to use, how much downforce to run and how much weight to add, etc., this is one of the rare cars where I don't make it up as I go along. I have tested this car for hours and hours and hours over the last month or so, tweaking it here and there to try and find the best compromises, so I already know what my final setup will look like. One of the unfortunate trade-offs with this downforce and tyre setup is that the front end is very numb at high speeds, which resulted in me rather dramatically misjudging and overtaking, resulting in yet another death. Power! Oh god. Ow! Ow! Oh hell. Oh hell. I can make it. I can make it. What the fuck? Differential tweaks were next. I maxed the initial torque to slow down the car's reactions. Acceleration sensitivity was fine the way it was. I reduced braking sensitivity to try and make the brakes feel a tad sharper. I then reduced camber to help with braking distances too. Decreasing it more so at the rear can help with wheel spin as well as lift-off oversteer. Reducing the front anti-roll bars also helps with braking oversteer. I also increased compression, which helps the 595 with bouncing mid-corner. Oh Christ hell. Despite still being very prone to rollovers when driving over curbs, the Abarth was feeling much nicer. Oh no, brake! Ow. This car is still a total death trap of course, but we have to take the victories where we can with this one. The last changes I made were to reduce expansion, more so at the front, which seems to also help with the bouncing through corners. I also added an excessive amount of front toe out, which makes the car pretty unwilling to turn into a corner, which in this case is helpful for stability on bumpy high-speed sections. I also added more rear toe in to reduce power oversteer. The Honda Abarth was now about as reasonable as it was ever going to get. This car is never going to be competitive, but either way it was time to see how it would perform at the Nurburgring. This is the final setup for the Nordschleife. On smoother tracks you may be able to get away with less aggressive toe angle settings, or possibly even using racing medium tyres at the front. So, with all of that trouble we've just been through to barely make this little shoebox drivable, sorry did I say shoebox, I meant shitbox, it'll be nothing short of amazing if it doesn't come out last on our leaderboard. At this point I should probably explain some of my choices when it came to setting this car up. So, we have racing hard tyres on the front and racing soft at the rear. While it could be possible to make the car kind of controllable with racing medium tyres on the front, the biggest issue I kept running into was that the car is very prone to rolling over. Half the reason I'm driving so gently for this run is because I'm avoiding the curbs, because the 595 is always right on the edge of a rollover. If anything, it makes more sense to use sport soft or rain tyres on the front. The downforce is a trade-off. Running low downforce values, as I have done, will result in the front end lifting at high speeds, so the handling is extremely vague on sections like Schwedenkreuz or the Foxhole. Trouble is, if you try higher front downforce values, the car can instead feel like it wants to spin like a top, even at high speeds. With the ballast weight, I found 50-50 to be the best compromise. Putting the power down without too much wheel spin was easier than expected, so the priority with the ballast weight is to reduce the likelihood of lift-off oversteer or wheelies. All of the changes I made have effectively reduced the range of grip. If you go back and watch my initial attempts at driving this car, you'll see the front wheels are constantly going between lifting off the ground entirely to weighting up and giving maximum grip. So the front of the car repeatedly flits between huge amounts of grip and none at all, which is obviously fucking mental. All of my changes are aimed at reducing the maximum front end grip, while at the same time trying to remove the situations where there's no grip at all. So there's just enough to turn effectively, but not too much that the car over-rotates. Basically, it is all for predictability. In the end, I managed a 7 minutes 2 seconds. Unsurprisingly, that's the slowest yet. If you've got a setup that'll get this car around the Nordschleife in under 7 minutes, please let me know in the comments. So, that was my attempt to tame a monster. I hope my settings helped, or that you enjoyed this video. Join me next time where I'm driving a car that's almost definitely faster. Thank you very much for watching, and if you're feeling particularly generous, I would greatly appreciate your subscription. Take care, and ta-ra.